Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to see how to integrate CI/CD into .NET Web API using GitHub and AWS. I have divided it into 9 steps. First, we will create a very basic .NET Web API, push that to GitHub, and then we create a Docker file and push that to GitHub, where we create a GitHub workflow to use this Docker and create a Docker image. Now, after creating Docker image, I have to push it to somewhere, right? So for that, I'll go to AWS, I'll create a ECR and the associated identity provider and role. So my GitHub workflow, which got created in step 4, can push to AWS ECR. Once I create that in the AWS, I come back to my GitHub workflow, update those details so my workflow can push the image to AWS. And now all good. We created images, we push to ECR, but I will have to run those. For that, I need containers. So I use ECS service of AWS to run my images. So I create ECS Fargad. I'll create associated artifacts like clusters, task definitions, and services, and I export that task definition so that it can be version controlled. Now, after creating it on the AWS side, uh, checking in my task definition, I will update my workflow to push it to ECS. So that's a typical workflow uh, that we're going to see in next few minutes. And the infrastructure AWS, what we are using is IAM, ECR, and ECS. Internally, while we are creating ECS, it creates load balances and other things also, but at high level, these three are the services that we go and explicitly create. Having said that, we will go to Visual Studio. I have created that application and pushed it to GitHub already in the interest of time, and I also would be copying the workflow code in the interest of time, but if you guys are interested, you can just google it and you can get those code anywhere. You just have to update your application specific details. Now step 1 and 2 are already taken care. Step 3 is creating the Docker file. I will go ahead and I will add container support to my application. Leaving in the defaults, I've added these details and I will push it, say Docker added, and I will commit the changes, commit all, and push. Now, step 3 is done. The step 4 is creating the Docker workflow. I will go into the GitHub. My project is already there. Docker got added. I can see the commit. I'll go to the actions. I will search for Docker workflow, Docker image configure. So at a high level, what this workflow contains is it's an YAML file. It contains various stages, but for this default, I just have build stage. I will try to add build test and the Docker image stage also. I'm copying in the code. Let me paste it here. What is there here is the build stage, which runs .NET Restore, .NET Build, a test stage. Right now, I don't have any test project, but we can very well create a test project and this pipeline workflow would seamlessly work. So the test stage it would do .NET test, and then Docker image basically builds Docker build and it creates a Docker image. So this is my application name. So let me commit the changes. Let me go and check the actions. So you see each of the stages running like this: build, test, and Docker build and publish. Let's wait until these steps run. Well, all my stages are done. Now my fourth step is done. Fifth step is going to AWS and creating ECR. So I am in the AWS console. I'll go ahead and create a, still let's say my first application repo. I'll create it. Okay, it should contain all small letters. Okay, create. This is done. Now I have to, okay, my ECR repository is created. Now I have to create identity providers and roles. Why do I need that? Because I am accessing AWS from external workflow, which is GitHub. So for that, GitHub workflow has to authenticate with my AWS. And for authorization, I have to define role saying that this GitHub workflow will be having access to the specific resources and it is having so and so permission. So for that, I first go and create an identity provider that's already created for you. I've already created it. So this is the URL. I'll just but quickly show you how to create this. Add provider, OpenID Connect, and here I give the URL of this, which basically says that for whenever a request from GitHub workflow is coming, this that token, the token that that request is sending in will be generated from this, and the audience would be this, which typically means that that request would need a STS token from Amazon so that it can authenticate with the ECR service, right? I have to add provider. I'm not doing add provider because I already added it for you guys. And then I will have to go and add role. So role typically is for authorization. The identity provider that I showed is for authentication. This is for authorization. So I will go ahead and I create a role custom trust policy. What is this trust policy is it typically says that my request is coming from so and so GitHub repo and it is asking for Amazon AWS STS token, right? That is what it typically says. So I'm copying paste this for you. So if you see the subject is the repo from which the request can come, I will replace this from my settings, actions, OIDC. So I'll copy this here. I'll go back to my roles. I will paste it here, right? This is my depot and this is the Amazon STS, right? I'll create next. Oh, this is missing something else, which is the branch also. So we will have to give branch details also. So we will just replace this, rest everything would remain same. So this is the repo, this is the branch that the request, if that request is coming from that branch and it is requesting for this, make that request assume this role, which we are going to define next, which are the permissions. So I click on next, next create inline policy, and I'll be giving in this policy, right? This resource I will update with the ECR that I've created, my first application repo. Where is it? Summary, and then I will copy my ARN. I will update here, right? So basically says that for this resource give all this permissions. So this is typically talks about authorization. Audit identity provider talks about authentication. I've created for ECS also for the later point of time when we are creating ECS. So these are for specific to ECS. Here it is giving an error, not an error sort of thing, but AWS says that you're allowing every on IAM pass role action to be done on every resources, which may have some issues, but for this POC purpose I'm allowing everybody, but later you can give your specific resource. With that details I'll click on next, and the role name I'll give it as my first app role, and I'll click on create role, which would create me that role. Right now what all steps are done, I till fifth step it is done. We have created ECR, identity provider, IAM roles. Now I have to go back to GitHub workflow and update my workflow to update in such a way that it pushes to ECR. I will go to GitHub. I will go to my code. I will go to workflows, my Docker image workflow. I will edit it. I will update this Docker image step with this, which basically says that I create my Docker image if it is just a pull request, but if it is push, I will try to authenticate and authorize with AWS. It gives me back the token. I use that token to authenticate myself with ECR. Once authenticated, I'll push that image that got created. I'm creating few variables. Uh, here, which is like one secret is AWS role to assume, and where AWS region is another variable, ECR repository is another variable. I'll show you where it has to be created so that this workflow uses it from the GitHub variable section. And let me replace this with my application name, right? All set. Here also I'll update. Here also I'll update, right? All good. So I need to create those variables. Let me pause the application, pause the recording, and create those and show it to you, because it has got a secret which is ARN of my role. But for you to have an understanding of where I have to create those, see, if you see, if I go to secret and variables, I have to go to actions and I have to create it here. Okay, I'm just pausing the video.